Okay, next we're going to look at Sarah Osborne. And again, she is considered an outsider because she had been ill for over a year and hadn't been to church for over a year. And as she walked into the courtroom, all of the girls began to shriek and convulse. And so immediately she's seen as a witch tormenting her victims. She claimed that it wasn't her fault. A dark spirit had came to her one night in a dream and grabbed her up by the hair and told her not to go to church. And since she hadn't been since that dream, even though her husband backed her up by saying she was sick, the court saw her as taking orders from the devil. And so she is eventually convicted, and she's going to die in jail. The third person in this original accusation is Tituba. She was a slave from Venezuela. She was kidnapped around the age of 10 from her home in Venezuela and taken to Barbados, and there she was sold into slavery. And she brings all of her beliefs and her folklore with her. And stories of things taking over people or spooks in the forest or things like that, that's nothing for Tituba in her religion. She eventually confesses in court that the devil had approached her and asked her to sign his book and serve him, and that she had seen 4 other women tormenting the girls. And these other women commanded her to hurt the girls along with a tall man. Later, it's found out that the Reverend Paris, who was her master, beat her into confessing like this in court. She is later sold from the Parises into slavery and for somebody else. All of the women are placed in jail, and paranoia begins to run rampant over the community. Over the next few months, accusations flew, and eventually Martha Corey is accused of being a witch. Now, Martha Corey, she's not an outsider. She's a good, upstanding member of the church. And so people begin to look at her and think, well, oh gosh, if Martha Corey, a good, upstanding member of the church, can be accused, then anybody could be a witch. The court even questions a 4-year-old girl who has no clue of what's going on, and her confused answers are taken as confession that she is a witch. When the trials are eventually moved to a bigger place, and at the new place, the first person questioned is going to be Bridget Bishop, a town gossip that nobody likes, and she is convicted, and she becomes the first person to actually be hanged. It's quickly spinning out of control. Even Cotton Mather is coming along and saying, guys, this is getting too big. We need to stop it. And he is ignored. 5 people are going to be sentenced to be hanged in July of 1792, 5 more in August, 8 in September. Eventually, even the governor of Massachusetts, his wife is accused. And this leads him to investigating it and prohibiting further arrests, releasing many of the accused, and terminating the court. But the most interesting of all of these people that are accused, here's Martha Corey defending herself in court, is Giles Corey, Martha's husband. He initially comes and believes the testimony against Martha. Thinks that maybe she might be a witch, and it goes all well and good till he's accused of being a witch, a wizard, and he refused to plead guilt or innocence. Eventually, what he is going to be convicted to happen is he's going to be pressed, which means he's brought in, laid down without any clothes on, and rocks are going to be placed on top of him. And after a weight is added, he's asked to confess his guilt or innocence, and all he simply claims as they are putting more stone on him. He never confesses. He just simply says more weight. Even at the time, the accusers would stand on the rocks on top of him, and he is eventually pressed to death. In 1957, 250 years after this, Massachusetts publicly and formally apologized to all that had happened. One story I want to talk about, there were no witches that were burned in Massachusetts. What we think now that happened probably during this time period, what led to all the confusion was ergot. A scientific study was done in the